I didn't want to cry in front of everyone, but the threat hovered constantly behind my eyes. Harding closed the door and lowered himself into the chair across from us. "All right," he began, folding his hands. "Before I speak with Ms. Rowan again, I need to understand exactly what happened from your perspective." I swallowed. Every detail of the classroom replayed in my mind. Her voice, the humiliation, the disbelief painted on my classmates' faces. "Do I say everything? Will it backfire? Will she say I lied?" "Maya," Harding prompted. I exhaled slowly. "She accused me of cheating even though I didn't. She took my quiz and my backpack. She told me I was dishonest because of my disability accommodations." His brows knitted. "She used that wording?" "Not exactly dishonest," I said. "She said I was playing the victim and that I exaggerate my condition." Ethan immediately leaned forward. "We have it on video," he said. "Everything she said, everything she did. She grabbed her bag." "I saw the moment she grabbed the backpack," Harding said. "That alone is concerning, but video will help clarify everything." He gestured. "Let me see the recordings." One by one, the students placed their phones on the table and played them. Each angle was different. One shaky, one perfectly clear, one capturing my face up close as humiliation bloomed across it. Harding watched silently, his expression tightening with every passing second. When the final recording ended, the room felt unbearably still. He inhaled, then exhaled slowly. "Thank you for being honest, and thank you all for documenting what happened. This is extremely serious." My stomach twisted. His tone wasn't reassuring. It was heavy, complicated, laced with words unspoken. "What's going to happen to her?" Brianna asked. "That depends on the investigation," Harding said. "But this behavior is unacceptable from any staff member." His eyes flicked to me. "Maya, are you all right?" I stared at the table, ashamed that my voice cracked when I replied. "I'm trying to be. We appreciate you coming forward. I know it's difficult." I nodded, swallowing hard. I didn't know if appreciate was enough. Harding rose. "Please wait here. I need to speak with Ms. Rowan." He left the room, closing the door behind him. The moment he was gone, the tension collapsed like a wave crashing. Lila scooted her chair close to mine. "You did amazing," she whispered. "I'm so proud of you." "I didn't do anything," I muttered. "I just stood there and got humiliated." "No," she insisted. "You didn't break. That woman has been awful all year, and you never broke." I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel brave. I felt like my bones were hollow, like someone could blow on me and I'd collapse. Ethan cleared his throat. "She's always been like that," he said quietly. "Not with everyone, but with certain students. I've seen her snap at kids for barely anything." "Same," Brianna said. "She's been picking on you since week 1. "That doesn't make it easier," I said. "No," Ethan agreed, "but it means you're not crazy." For a minute, no one spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was shared exhaustion, the kind that settles after something explosive. But eventually, the silence twisted into anxiety again. Every muffled sound from the hallway made my pulse jump. I hated knowing Ms. Rowan was just a few steps away, probably furious, probably plotting her version of events. "What if she lies?" I whispered. "We have the video," Lila said. "What if she twists things?" I asked. "What if she says I provoked her or—" "You didn't," Ethan said firmly. "And she can't argue with footage." But I wasn't convinced. Authority figures always seemed to have more credible voices than kids. Teachers were believed because they were adults. Students were doubted because we weren't. I hugged myself and focused on breathing. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 14. Every second stretched too long. Harding was still talking to her, and each additional moment made my chest tighter. Finally, the door opened. Harding stepped inside. His face was unreadable. The pit in my stomach grew colder. "Thank you for waiting," he said. "I've spoken with Ms. Rowan. There will be an official investigation starting today. For now, I'm placing her on temporary leave." I exhaled sharply. Lila grabbed my hand. But Harding wasn't finished. "There's something else," he said. "Ms. Rowan has made counterclaims." My blood went cold. "What, counterclaims?" "She alleges that you have misrepresented your disability documentation and that you have engaged in academic dishonesty multiple times this semester." My mouth fell open. "That's not true. None of that is true." "I understand," Harding said calmly, "but accusations require review." "But—" He held up a hand. "Maya, listen. I am not saying you're guilty. I'm saying we must address every claim." It felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. "What happens now?" I whispered. Harding looked at each of us, his voice steady but strained. "Now," he said, "we begin." The day the investigation began, I woke up with a strange sense of dread curled around my chest like a living thing. The world outside seemed too bright, too ordinary for what was happening inside me. By the time I reached Westbridge High, my stomach was in knots, and my hands trembled as I gripped my backpack straps. Lila met me at the entrance. Her expression was a mixture of determination and worry. "They're letting you sit in the office while they review everything," she said. "We'll be here the whole day if you need us." I nodded, trying to breathe. "I don't want her anywhere near me." "She won't be," Lila said firmly. "She's on leave for now. Principal Harding promised it." The first part of the investigation was an interview with Harding. He asked me to recount every interaction with Ms. Rowan, from the first time she criticized my handwriting to the moment she grabbed my backpack. My voice cracked repeatedly, but he didn't interrupt or judge. He took notes, his pen moving slowly, deliberately, like he was recording not just words, but my emotional state. "Your composure is admirable," Harding said when I finished. "Even if you feel vulnerable, you're telling the truth. That matters here." I felt a small spark of relief, but also a pang of fear. The spark was quickly smothered by the reality that Ms. Rowan was submitting counterclaims. After my interview, I was escorted to a waiting room where Lila, Ethan, and Brianna had gathered. The walls were pale, the air smelling faintly of sanitizer and stress. "We just have to wait," Ethan said. "They're probably checking the videos, your paperwork, and her claims. It's not over yet, but it's a start." I nodded silently, feeling exhausted before anything had really happened. I wasn't just tired physically. My entire body was worn down from months of anxiety, from being treated as less than capable because of my disability. Hours passed slowly. Teachers came and went, stopping to whisper in Harding's office. Students drifted through the hallways, but no one came near me. I felt both invisible and exposed. Invisible because no one questioned the official process. Exposed because I knew everyone in the building knew about the confrontation. Finally, a note arrived. Harding had called my parents. My mother was coming in immediately. Her presence was both comforting and terrifying. She had always been fiercely protective, but the thought of facing Ms. Rowan again, even indirectly, made my stomach twist. When my mom arrived, she hugged me tightly. "You're not alone, Maya," she whispered. "We'll get through this together." During the meeting with Harding, my mother asked questions I hadn't even thought of. Legal questions, questions about the school's responsibility, about how accommodations were monitored, and how Ms. Rowan could face consequences for mistreatment. Her voice was steady and commanding, making me realize I'd been too passive for too long. As we waited for the next stage of the investigation, I began receiving messages from students who had witnessed the incident. Some were supportive, some shocked, and a few outright angry at Ms. Rowan. It was strange to see the impact of one teacher's behavior ripple through the school. The humiliation I had felt alone was suddenly shared, and while that didn't erase the pain, it offered a strange comfort. Harding returned and called Ms. Rowan's assistant principal in for mediation. The first session of the formal investigation began. It was tense. Ms. Rowan's demeanor had shifted from anger to calculated calm, but the coldness in her eyes was unmistakable. "Principal Harding," she said, voice even but sharp. "I maintain that Maya has been dishonest regarding her accommodations. There have been multiple incidents that demonstrate manipulation." I bristled. "Multiple incidents?" I asked. "You mean the time I asked for extra time on a quiz and you assumed I was cheating?" "Yes," she replied, voice unwavering. "And your handwriting patterns suggest intentional delays." I wanted to scream. My wrists ached from the nerve condition that caused the slow handwriting she was accusing me of faking. My brain screamed that this wasn't about rules. It was about her personal dislike for me. Harding interjected calmly. "We have video evidence and documentation from the school's medical board supporting Maya's accommodations. Let's review it." The videos played again in the conference room, juxtaposed against my medical documentation. Lila, Ethan, and Brianna watched with me, their expressions a mix of outrage and anticipation. Ms. Rowan's calm demeanor faltered slightly as the recordings played, the words she had shouted and her aggressive movements undeniable on camera. "This evidence does not reflect manipulation," Harding said when the videos ended. "It reflects the behavior of an educator in violation of our code of conduct." Ms. Rowan shifted in her seat but remained silent. She knew the videos left little room for her narrative. The tension didn't vanish. The investigation now required interviews with other students who had been in the classroom during the incident. Some were hesitant to speak, fearing retaliation, while others were angry and outspoken. Each account painted a picture of consistent hostility from Ms. Rowan toward me specifically. One witness described her smirking when I asked for clarification on a question. Another recalled her rolling her eyes and muttering under her breath while I wrote my essay. The cumulative effect was undeniable. The administration began piecing together a pattern. Ms. Rowan's behavior wasn't an isolated event. It was ongoing, targeted, and personal. Yet the process wasn't without stress. Rumors began circulating in the school. Some students sympathized with Ms. Rowan, suggesting that I had provoked her or that I was exaggerating. Others openly supported me, posting messages on social media and forming a small network of solidarity. I learned quickly that school gossip could be a weapon as sharp as any accusation. During one particularly intense day, Harding called me to a private room to review the student statements. "Maya," he said, "I know this feels overwhelming, but remember, truth is on your side." I nodded, trying to draw courage from his words. "It's just exhausting," I admitted. "I keep reliving that moment over and over." "That's normal," he said gently, "and it's okay to feel frustrated. What matters is that you're brave enough to speak up." The following days were a whirlwind. Meetings with counselors, interviews with parents, phone calls with the school board. Each encounter layered anxiety and relief in equal measure. I realized just how complex the system was, how much effort it required to prove wrongdoing, and how easy it was for a single teacher's bias to affect a student's life. Then came the turning point. One of the students who had initially been quiet approached Harding privately. "I have more video," he said. "Ms. Rowan, she's done this before with other students. I found it on an old device. You should see it." The new footage revealed repeated patterns of targeting students who requested accommodations. The moments were subtle but unmistakable. Eye-rolling, snide remarks, dismissive comments, and intimidation. Harding's eyes darkened as he watched the footage. "This confirms a pattern," he said. "Ms. Rowan's behavior is systemic, not isolated. This changes the scope of our investigation." My relief was immediate, but I also felt a strange anger. How many students had suffered quietly before me? How long had she been allowed to continue unchecked? The next meeting with Ms. Rowan was the most intense. Harding presented the compiled evidence, including the new footage. Ms. Rowan's defenses began to crumble. Her voice wavered when confronted with undeniable facts. She tried to shift blame, claiming misunderstanding and stress, but the recorded evidence spoke louder than words. By the end of the session, Harding delivered the verdict. "Ms. Rowan, you are hereby placed on administrative leave pending formal disciplinary review. Depending on the board's decision, further consequences, including termination, may occur. Maya, your accommodations are fully recognized, and any record of this incident will reflect the wrongdoing you endured." The room was silent. Relief flooded me, so intense it nearly made me dizzy. Lila hugged me tightly, Ethan patted my back, and Brianna's eyes shimmered with pride. It didn't erase everything, the fear, the humiliation, the months of anxiety, but it finally validated my experience. For the first time in months, I felt seen. Harding walked me to the exit afterward. "You handled yourself with remarkable grace," he said quietly. "I hope you know this will make a difference, not just for you, but for other students in the future." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I hope so," I whispered. As I left the building that afternoon, I realized something fundamental had changed. My voice, once doubted and dismissed, had mattered. My courage, though shaky and imperfect, had sparked accountability. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a tentative sense of strength. The days following the investigation's conclusion were strange, almost surreal. Life at Westbridge High resumed, but it felt different, like walking through a familiar room that had been subtly rearranged while you weren't looking. Teachers whispered, students watched, and I could sense curiosity, sympathy, and judgment all at once. The first thing I noticed was the shift in the classroom dynamics. Some students who had previously avoided me now offered small smiles or nods of support. Lila stayed by my side, of course, and even Ethan and Brianna were more present, almost protective. But whispers followed me in the hallways, and I could feel eyes measuring my every move. That kind of attention was exhausting, even if it was mostly sympathetic. Ms. Rowan's absence created a noticeable void in the school. The administration quickly reassigned her classes to substitute teachers, and students speculated endlessly about the investigation and her potential termination. Some gossiped, some defended her, and some quietly admitted to noticing the way she treated students unfairly. The climate of fear she had created began to dissipate, leaving behind a cautious optimism. I was called to the principal's office once more. This time, it wasn't for confrontation, but for final documentation and reflection. Harding had assembled all records, including video footage, statements from students and staff, and my medical accommodations. It was thorough, exhaustive, and overwhelmingly validating. "Maya," Harding began, sitting across from me, "the review board has concluded its assessment. Ms. Rowan's actions were deemed inappropriate and discriminatory. The school will be implementing the full disciplinary measures, which may include termination. Additionally, we are revising policies to ensure all staff are aware of how to handle accommodations properly." A sense of relief washed over me, but it was accompanied by something I hadn't expected: lingering anger. Not just at Ms. Rowan, but at the system that allowed this to happen in the first place. I had fought, but what about the students before me? How many had suffered silently? Harding seemed to read my expression. "It's natural to feel that way," he said, "and your voice can make a difference. We'd like you to speak at the upcoming faculty meeting about your experience, not to shame anyone, but to educate and ensure future incidents are prevented." I hesitated. Speaking publicly about humiliation was terrifying. But then I remembered Lila, Ethan, Brianna, and the students who had stood with me. I nodded. "I'll do it," I said. In the days leading up to the meeting, I prepared my statement carefully. I wrote down my experiences, my feelings, and the lessons I wanted to share. I rehearsed with Lila, who insisted my words had power. "People need to hear this, Maya. They need to know what's real." When the day arrived, I stepped into the faculty room, heart pounding. Teachers filled the seats, murmuring quietly. Harding introduced me, and I took a deep breath, focusing on the purpose rather than my fear. "I want to share my experience," I began, my voice shaking at first but growing steadier with each sentence. I recounted the incident, the accusation, the humiliation, and the support I had received. I emphasized the importance of understanding and respecting accommodations, and I urged teachers to be aware of bias in their classrooms. By the time I finished, the room was silent. Some teachers nodded, some whispered quietly, and a few looked stunned. Harding spoke after me. Maya's courage and honesty have given us a chance to improve our school. This is how change happens, through openness, truth, and accountability. Afterwards, students approached me with gratitude and support. Even those who had been hesitant to speak before now expressed admiration for my bravery. It was overwhelming, but also deeply affirming. Weeks later, the formal outcome of Ms. Rowan's disciplinary review was announced. She was suspended indefinitely with pending termination. The school issued a public statement acknowledging the incident, reiterating the importance of student accommodations, and committing to staff training. Life slowly began to feel normal again, though I carried the scars of the incident, mental and emotional. My relationships with teachers improved as they recognized my capabilities and respected my accommodations. Friends rallied around me, and I discovered a deeper sense of resilience I hadn't known I possessed. Yet the incident also forced me to confront my own fears and insecurities. I realized I had often internalized others' judgments, doubting myself because authority figures had convinced me I was inadequate. The ordeal taught me to trust my own experience, to stand firm in my truth, and to advocate for myself when necessary. One afternoon, months after the incident, I walked into the library with Lila. We found a quiet corner and began talking about everything that had happened. "I still can't believe she did that to you," Lila said, shaking her head. "I know," I replied. "But I also can't believe how much I learned about myself, about standing up, about speaking out, about not letting fear control me." She smiled. "You're stronger than you realize, and now other students will benefit from your courage." We spent the rest of the afternoon talking about classes, homework, and plans for the weekend. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. The past wasn't erased, but it had become something I could integrate into my story rather than something that dominated it. At home that evening, I sat with my mother. We discussed the legal aspects of the case, the school's response, and the possibility of mentoring other students who might face similar challenges. My mother hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you, Maya. You didn't just protect yourself, you protected others." I smiled faintly. It's weird, isn't it? How one terrible incident can also be the moment you discover your own strength. "Yes," she said, "but that's the difference between surviving and thriving. You're thriving now." The months that followed brought incremental change in the school environment. Staff underwent mandatory training on disability accommodations and bias awareness. Students became more vigilant about reporting misconduct. The culture slowly shifted toward one where voices like mine were heard and validated. I also noticed a personal transformation. I approached academics with more confidence, participated more actively in class, and no longer feared raising concerns when something felt unfair. I learned to trust my instincts and to understand that accountability was not only possible but necessary. Even with the closure, moments of doubt surfaced occasionally. A whisper in a hallway, a tense glance from someone who had once been aligned with Ms. Rowan, each reminded me of the fragility of authority and the importance of vigilance. But I no longer felt powerless. I had experienced the full arc of injustice, advocacy, and resolution. I had seen firsthand that speaking up, even when terrifying, could catalyze real change. Looking back, the incident with Ms. Rowan remains one of the most painful experiences of my high school years, but also one of the most formative. It taught me the value of evidence, of allies, of perseverance, and of unwavering self-belief. It reminded me that courage doesn't always feel heroic in the moment. Sometimes it's simply refusing to be silenced. I also realized that justice isn't always immediate or perfect. It requires effort, persistence, and sometimes the support of others willing to bear witness. But even when slow and imperfect, it can be transformative, not only for the victim, but for everyone who witnesses it. The scars of humiliation faded with time, replaced by a profound sense of clarity and resilience. I learned to separate my worth from the judgments of others, and to recognize that systemic change is often built upon the courage of those who refuse to be silenced. As I walked across the stage at the end of my junior year to accept an academic award, I thought about everything I had endured. The accusation, the videos, the confrontation, the investigation, and the eventual vindication. I realized that the ordeal had not broken me. It had strengthened me. And though I had once been terrified of the power Ms. Rowan held, I now understood that courage and truth could outweigh fear and authority. In the quiet of that moment, diploma in hand, applause ringing in the background, I felt a sense of closure unlike anything I had known. The incident with Ms. Rowan was over, but the lessons it had taught me would remain for a lifetime. I also understood something else. Life would continue to present challenges, unfairness, and confrontation. But now I had experienced what it meant to stand firm, to advocate for myself, and to demand accountability. Those skills I knew would guide me far beyond the halls of Westbridge High. Looking back, I see the incident as a turning point, not just in my high school experience, but in my personal growth. It forced me to confront fear, humiliation, and injustice, and ultimately allowed me to emerge stronger, more confident, and more aware of my own worth. I learned that support can come from unexpected places, friends, peers, even witnesses who quietly document the truth. I learned that evidence matters, but so does persistence, clarity, and the willingness to speak despite fear. Most importantly, I learned that standing up for yourself is not just an act of self-preservation, it is an act of courage that can protect and empower others as well. The day Ms. Rowan was finally held accountable is a day I will never forget. But more than that, the day I found my own voice is a day that shaped the person I continue to become. Someone resilient, unafraid to confront injustice, and determined to make a difference no matter the odds.